I would like to welcome you all to the Tuesday, June 1st Open Mic Night. Thank you all for coming out this evening. And we will start off our meeting with the Pledge of Allegiance. I would like to ask Mary Robichaux to come forward and lead us in the pledge.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Representative Mary Robichaux. We appreciate it, and we appreciate you coming out to our meetings. It's always refreshing to see our state elected officials interested in local politics, so thank you. Okay, tonight is open mic night. I see a couple of faces out there that I have not seen before, so I'll run through the meeting rules, so to speak, and everyone has 5 minutes to speak. And what I will do is call on you when I see your name, your hand held up. I'll say, yes, sir, please come forward. Yes, ma'am, please come forward. And I will always try to make sure that I'm pointing at the right person, but please understand that a lot of times there might be 2 or 3 people sitting behind you. I will also ask you all to please, because our city clerk, Marley Press, always needs to know for our records what your name and address is. And so we have comment cards in the back. I'm hoping that you all filled them out. If you haven't filled them out prior to speaking, you can go ahead and fill them out afterwards. But when you approach the podium, please give us your name and your address. And like I said, you've got 5 minutes, and hopefully that will be enough time to deliver your message. If it's anything that we can answer this evening, we will do so. If not, we of course will follow up and get a reply to you through staff. So we are open for conversation this evening. We are here to hear you. Is there anyone that would like to come forward and speak? Yes, ma'am, please come forward.
Except for Shoke, he's the oldest person in the room. I'm the second oldest. Janet Russell, Roswell resident since 1973. Note that Mr. Judy and Mr. Palermo are not present tonight. Are they coming, or they've got excuses?
Thank you for reminding me. Councilmember Palermo and Councilmember Judy will not be here this evening with excused absences.
Thank you. Okay, a couple of things. I'll start right out since 5 minutes goes fast. Yesterday was Memorial Day. I was very sad to see that the city didn't even take time to put a bouquet of flowers over there. Nothing. The flowers that are there, I left a bouquet, and Karen Haslett Parrish did in memory of her uncle who was killed at the death march at Bataan. So I don't know why. I know we didn't need to have a big celebration. 135,000 people went to the Indy 500, but we couldn't even have a 2-second commemoration at the Faces of War Memorial. So much for that. Number 2, we have a fabulous art exhibit that got installed last week here in the City Hall. It's great. Unfortunately, unless you have business in the city, you'll never see it because it's only open 9 to 5 Monday through Fridays. So I'd like to let you know what's going on in Woodstock. Woodstock, which is a much smaller town, has one historic house called the Reeves House. John Whelan volunteered to renovate the house at cost, and it is now an unbelievable small art museum. And I was at the ribbon cutting 2 weeks ago, and they have hired a full-time art curator with her undergrad from UC Berkeley and her master's degree from Tulane, and there is now a litany of events to attend, from jazz on the lawn to curated walks through the art exhibit to unlimited mimosas and unlimited art on Sunday mornings there. Now, I know Roswell really doesn't have any historic homes, so we might want to consider one. And I would invite you all to go to Woodstock, to the Reeves House, which is almost next to the Reformation Brewery. and have a look at what a city can do with an exciting cultural arts event space. Because we are doing nothing with our historic homes, absolutely nothing, except gathering dust at this point. I just think you ought to see it. It's absolutely fantastic. We might call ours, if we did it once a week, Art After Hours here and open up the lobby to have people enjoy it. Because this one's we've had some really, really good art exhibits here, but nobody sees them. There's no PR in the newspaper, there's no articles about it, there is nothing. Okay, 272 South Atlanta Street. Magically, I went over there and counted, and 50 trees were cut down this week on 1/3 of an acre. Just, I would like to say clear cut, but they left them standing with jagged things with no plan, and when I came to ComDev, nobody knew what I was talking about. No one, okay? 50 trees. Grimes Bridge. I went today, did an unofficial count, 100 trees down on 4 corners. If a tornado had ripped through Roswell, this would have made national news that all those trees came down. Some of them are this big around, they're not little pine tree sticks. Would have made national news had tornado whatever come through. But that seems to be business as usual in Roswell these days, just cutting down every tree. I love that this one's for an improvement intersection improvement. There's nothing improving when you cut down trees and people's houses are 2 feet from what's gonna be a street, I guess. Need we say much more about Oxbow Road? It's gonna be real interesting. We already know. I know that the mayor has paid for an investigation, and I'd like to know what the cost was and what the findings were. They have not been made public to my knowledge. Maple Street, the cut through, reeks of backroom dealings. I remember when we paid the Reddicks $300,000 to put in a road and nobody questioned it, and now we're paying another $300,000 for the same property. I'm sorry, doesn't sound, you know, if it walks like a duck and quacks like a duck, chances are. Just a reminder to you, because no one in front of me was present, except maybe Mr. Fisher, when the Presbyterian Church added their big building on a few years ago, maybe 10, 12, one of the conditions was to put a sidewalk on that Mimosa cut through between Mimosa and 9. It was a condition. The city already knew they were going to improve it, and they said it's deferred. We're going to work on that thing now, and the Presbyterian Church needs to pay for it. It was never an exemption. Have you got that? Please make note of it. When I mentioned it to RDOT, they went, oh, it was a long time ago. No, it's still in effect. Kathy Field was the community development director. So, oh, I forgot to bring it, but I have what I call my magic sandwich bag, because the Roswell Inc. is doing nothing and the Roswell Visitor Center is doing even less to tell people about this city. So I got business cards from restaurants, shops, services in town, and when I meet newcomers, I say, here, these people are great. They're not paying me to tell you about it, because we have no information being distributed in this town. Nothing right now. We can't blame COVID. When there's less, people should be doing more, not resorting to virtual. Finally, I know my time is short, but I apologize, but it's been a year. Last year, we had no Riverside concert series, no concerts on the City Hall Green, no 4th of July, no end of summer, no Youth Day Parade, no Fall Farm Days, no Touch a Truck, no Water Treatment Plant Festival. Those were all budgeted in the 2019 budget, and I'd like to know where the money went, because we had none of those events in 2020, but it was all in the budget. So I would like the answers now, not sent to me by email. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Russell. I would like to go through the points you made that I can answer for you this evening. The Memorial Day event, as you know, is put on by the Rotary. It takes them 12 months at the least to plan for the next event. They chose not to roll the dice and put on the event because they were looking for sponsors, they were looking for speakers, all of those issues, and they chose not to put the event on, and we agreed with them, because if we would have, and then they came back and they said, well, maybe we'll put on a smaller event, and then they said, well, no, we're not going to do that, and our comment was, well, that's probably a good idea on your part, it's your call. However, if we announce an event at City Hall property that does not regulate the number of people that will be there, I would also like to thank the Art Fund for putting on their program, and that program is put on by the Art Fund. It is not put on by the City of Roswell. I would like to thank them for that, and they do a great job, and sometimes it might not be with what we agree they should be doing, but I think that they do a great job, and I would commend them for that. The next item that I would like to say is you were talking about the trees on Highway 9. That is a piece of property that's owned by Steve Allen. He was given authority to clear cut that property 2 to 3 years ago. I am still investigating that, but those trees were not cut at my hand or this council's hand. That was a decision that was made by community development, our land disturbance experts, and Mr. Allen. I'm not sure yet, and I am looking into it, why it took him so long to act on the site approval that he had. I would also agree with Mrs. Russell that the information that the city gets out sometimes isn't as timely as we would like to see it, but I would like to say that we are always trying to report back to you on issues that you have, and I apologize this evening if we don't report immediately to your issue, but we will get back to you. The other thing I would like to point out is in the last year's budget, when we saw COVID coming and we were in the midst of creating our budget, we cut $9.2 million out of our budget. $9.2 million. We sharpened our pencils. We got everything done that we needed to get done so our citizens, their garbage was picked up, their water was delivered, you know, all of the things that we need in this city and the services we need to provide were still provided while we cut $9.2 million. So when you ask where a special event dollar amount was coming from, I would tell you that it comes out of the $9.2 million that we cut out of the budget for the citizens of Roswell. Those are Roswell tax dollars. And I'm very proud to say that our staff willfully came forward and said, these are the things that we can cut. These are the things that we would propose we cut. And we do all of this in the name of the citizens of Roswell. And any other questions I have not answered for you, Ms. Russell, I will answer those in email. And then I would also like to ask the next person to please come forward if they would like to speak. Is there anyone that would like to come forward? Yes, sir, please come forward. You can just leave it right there. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Madam Mayor and members of the council. My name is J.D. Jordan. I've lived in Roswell for 20 years, and in that time I've been a small business owner, a Cub Scout leader, a member of the local lodge, and I'm raising 5 awesome kids here. I also vote. This is, however, the first time I've come to speak at the city council for any reason, so I brought some friends in the orange and red. So 3 weeks ago, a tabloid was tossed into my driveway. It may have been thrown into yours as well. It appeared all over Roswell and North Fulton. It's got a few mundane political pieces in it, which is fine, but about 3/4 of the tabloid espouse easily disproven and dangerous COVID-19 and big lie disinformation. So what, right? This tabloid was designed to deceive us. It presents itself as a newspaper, featuring editorials by an unnamed Alpharetta mom of 3, a Roswell doctor, but a cursory examination of the content reveals a singular anonymous voice and a lack of sources that forbids credulity. There's no publisher, distributor, or authoritative contact information. So while it may be on newsprint, we should not be fooled. It is a conspiracy blog masquerading as a newspaper. The COVID-19 disinformation contained in this tabloid is harmful to our community because it encourages the misinformed to avoid basic health protocols, vaccinations, prolonging our public health and economic recovery. The big lie disinformation is harmful to our community because it encourages the politically dishonest and seditious among us to further undermine the most secure election in U.S. history. We only need to look at the Capitol riots to know that these baseless statements are widely believed, even here in Roswell. I have no designs or desire to limit anyone's First Amendment right to free speech. I'm a novelist and a creative by trade. Puff and fiction are my business. But I'll grant that some amount of hyperbole is normal in political speech and protected. But when that language becomes so unhinged from reality that it undermines our democracy, then I think it's time that we step up and protect each other. So I've come to this council meeting to ask the mayor and the council to help us by doing 4 things. 1, amending the current Handbill ordinance to include a disinformation category of violation. 2, amend the Handbill ordinance further, requiring permitting for handbill distribution. 3, allocating resources to educate our kids and to better discern real news from fake. And 4, to issue a statement condemning the kind of harmful disinformation this tabloid contains. So let me start by talking a little bit about how the Roswell Code of Ordinance deals with handbills and should be amended. So first, we're looking for an ordinance against the willful distribution of disinformation. Despite the rise of fake news, there is no legal consensus definition that I can find of disinformation itself, but rules around digital distribution of disinformation do exist and are very clear. Individual creators may not be liable for the media they produce, but their distributors are. So we therefore propose an ordinance outlawing the distribution of harmful disinformation. And because I do not want the city to become an arbiter of truth, I don't think anyone would, residents reporting a violation of this rule should bear the burden of proof, needing to show with a preponderance of evidence that the material in question is demonstrably false and poses an immediate harm to the community. There are legal precedents for both of these things. Second, we seek the permitting of any and all handbill distributors. We already have an ordinance in place that requires distributors to honor a resident's desire to no longer receive their publications, whether it's political in nature or not. But in the case of an anonymous publication with no authors, no sources, no publishers, and no distributors, how do we opt out and hold them accountable? The answer, I believe, is transparency. Just as door-to-door salespeople must obtain a permit before coming into our communities to solicit, so should handbill distributors. And to honor our commitment to free political speech, such a permit should be free to any candidate for city or state office. The purpose of the permit isn't to swell our operating costs. It's to help residents identify sources of harmful disinformation when they're tossed into our driveways. And it's only with that transparency that the aforementioned and current and proposed ordinances can be relied upon. Third, we should teach our kids to spot disinformation. Personally, I couldn't be happier that my brood of children took one look at this tabloid and saw for what it is, lies presenting as journalism. But sadly, a 2018 Stanford study reveals that a majority of middle and high school age children cannot distinguish real news from false. And based on some of the discussions I've had on Nextdoor, I suspect many adults suffer this similar affliction. So I propose that Roswell joins the ranks of communities teaching media literacy by using our libraries and teaching museum as a platform to teach middle and high school kids how to critically assess media. And being mindful of our budget, I propose we use either Stanford's free curriculum on this matter, or if we want to keep it local, I used to be a teacher and I'm happy to help work on a curriculum. Lastly, we ask the mayor and the city council to stand up for rational political discourse. We'd like you all to issue a statement condemning this kind of baseless, harmful lying about the pandemic and the election. Such rhetoric harms our recovery from the health crisis, and despite our Civil War history, there is no room for sedition in Roswell any longer. The initiatives we're talking about are not about limiting free speech. They're about preserving accountability, the natural consequences, so to speak, of that speech. Rhetoric that anonymously encourages sedition against our local, state, and federal governments should be no more respected or tolerated than yelling fire in a theater. Thank you. And I would love to give you guys a copy of this. If you don't want to watch it on streaming, you can read it tonight while you drift
Thank
off.
you. Thank you very much. If you would give the copies to Mr. Fisher, we would appreciate it, and he'll distribute them. And then I would also like to ask our Assistant City Attorney, who's just fresh on the job, and we would like to welcome him, to opine on some of the issues you've brought up, and also tell us what other issues we can look into if we need to.
So the main concern I would have with some of the proposals that you've suggested is that, as you indicated, the distribution of handbills is protected by the First Amendment, the U.S. Constitution, First Amendment, and the Georgia Constitution's freedom of speech clause, which is even actually more protective than the U.S. Constitution's. So there are, we're somewhat limited in what we can do. We can, cities can do enact reasonable restrictions relating to the place or manner or expression of this type of things.
Excuse me, sir, this isn't an open dialogue.
Yeah.
You can have a seat if you'd like. Thank you.
But the restrictions cannot refer to the content of the speech. They have to be narrowly tailored to serve a significant government interest. They have to leave all alternative methods of communication open. And then under Georgia law, they actually have to be narrowly drawn to essentially where the regulations suppress no more speech than necessary. So there's a lot of restrictions that we have in there. There is U.S. One of the issues that was brought up was permitting. There was a case from the 1938, I think, so a pretty old case, in front of the U.S. Supreme Court that was Lovell versus City of Griffin, which is exactly that. A permitting required anybody who was going to distribute handbills to get a permit. The U.S. Supreme Court struck that down as impinging on First Amendment freedom of speech. So we have a lot of restrictions here, especially when we're talking about content. Now, some of the other suggestions about making a statement from the city council or education, they don't carry the same implications as far as the First Amendment.
Thank you. And let me just say that, Mr. Jordan, I had extended an invitation to you to meet with me and our legal department, and that invitation is still open. I checked with my assistant today, and you haven't taken us up on that, but that conversation is still open. What I would like to do are look at ways that we can protect our citizens from fake news. I think that's very important. We're facing it on every front. I try to stay off of social media, whether it's Nextdoor, Facebook, whatever the case may be. I try to stay off of it because there is a lot of fake news, and especially right now, and between the politics at the federal level, as well as I feel the effects of COVID, I feel that we are all suffering from a very, very negative environment that is not good for all of us. So what I would like to do is find something that the city of Roswell can do to help. I will tell you, just in a very small way, that, for example, our handbill ordinance, you can put a sticker on your mailbox that says, "Do not distribute handbills." It's got the through it. Now, you've got to remember, though, that political information is not part of a handbill. So when I am doing my campaigns, I always tell my volunteers, if anybody has "do not distribute a handbill," please honor that and do not give them any political information as well. But that's purely voluntary. And so what I'd like to say is, we would love to work with you on any way that we can to stop the fake news, because the fake news, I don't know what else we call it, is rampant. And, frankly, I'm getting tired of it in our local newspapers. So, I wish I could control it. Hopefully there are some things that we can do as a city to ensure that our residents are getting honest news on their driveways, in their mailboxes. Internet, that's a whole other realm. But we're here to help. And so, like I said, I'm more than willing to meet with you with our legal department, and, we can move forward on it and see what we can do to help our citizens, because I get it. This information is beginning to, it has ramped up. It's causing a lot of consternation with people. It's caused a lot of disagreements with people that really, there's actually no disagreement there because it's fake news. So thank you very much for bringing this forward. I appreciate it very much, and hopefully we'll continue the conversation. Yes, sir, please come forward.
My name is Mitchell Head, and thank you, Mayor Henry. This, too, is the first time that I have spoken in this forum. I've lived in Roswell for 14 years. Prior to that, with some relocations with my company, I lived away, but I had also been a resident of Roswell earlier in the 80s. The concern I have, I have been following the threads that have been posted on the Neighbor, and the concern I have is with the political climate such as it is right now, one person's interpretation of disinformation is quite different than another. Now, I understand that there are certain things, without drawing simplistic anomalies, possibly about the Earth being flat or the Mars landing. You know, those things are, I think most people would realize that they're not only disinformation, they're just ludicrous. But quite often, and I think what you find in the pamphleteer are opinion pieces. Now, we were barraged last year, not only with opinions, the highest levels of our media, but we also saw a great deal of disinformation that was spread and resulted in death, billions of dollars of destruction of property. And there was very little done at a national level to combat that or confront it. And I think quite often we immediately correlate disinformation with meaning that it is some belief someone on the right has. Me, open and honest discussion, as long as it is not fomenting insurrection, and I believe that the First Amendment does have the caveat of the fire in the theater where you cannot say something irresponsible. But for me to state an opinion, to me seems to be my right as a citizen. And it's also frightening to me that the folks that are talking, and I think their motives are probably good, that they feel like possibly they would have the ability to decide what is disinformation versus not. And I think that's a very slippery slope to get on. Because it's one of these things, and I can't remember, you know, which one of the justices said it relating to pornography. He said, I can't define it, but I know it when I see it. And I feel that's the same way here. So my fright here and significant concern as a citizen of the United States is that there are groups who disagree, and I understand that. They disagree with some of the opinions in here. One could parse these articles and find truth, and particularly since more and more information is coming out about the origins of the virus, and those, I believe, for political reasons, were ignored last year. Again, that's an opinion, you see, but it is an opinion that I could back up with fact. This is an opinion piece. It's exactly what it is. It is no different than an editorial in a newspaper. There's nothing in here, and it is anonymous. One of the reasons it is anonymous is because right now, if you entertain certain beliefs in this country, you can lose your job, you can lose your friendships, you can lose your livelihood. That is not what our founding fathers meant when they put this together. They meant for there to be open and often divisive discussion, but as long as it was done in a manner that led to some coalescence of thought, then it should be viewed as legitimate. So my concern is that people in this environment would even entertain having some group of people who would be making decisions for all of us of what is deemed appropriate to print. ISIS, as an example, still has the ability to go on Facebook and Twitter. But the President of the United States, Donald Trump, does not. Now, it's a private enterprise, so they can make those kind of decisions. But here, within a governmental agency, it would seem to me that we'd want to think very carefully before we begin to take an anonymously written newsletter, and it can be considered a newsletter because not everything in here is false. It's opinions. And there are things in here that are factual. But it would frighten me a great deal, and it would seem to be at the highest levels of malfeasance if, in fact, we were to take the opinions of people who do not like what is written in here and make some kind of decision that we should have a thought police, for lack of a better term, in this city that was deciding what could or could not be published and read by the people of this city. So I want to thank you for your time.
Thank you, and I would like to speak on behalf of the city because this is something that I believe we all feel very strongly about. This council is not going to interpret the Constitution. This council is not going to interpret what is real news, what is fake news. And I will not, as mayor, even go down that road. However, there are situations, for example, our handbill ordinance. We put that into place so that because people were concerned about their home safety when they were vacationing. So if they had numerous newspapers on their driveways, sidewalks, people would know they're on vacation. They weren't picking them up. So we've got those ordinances in place. Trust me, I have been the brunt of false news. And I can tell you right now that there is no way that I can control that. There's no way this council can control that. However, we can make sure that we've got the ordinances in place so that when you are on vacation for 2 weeks, you don't have these things distributed on your driveway. And those are the things that we can look at. I don't think, and I'll refer to our assistant city attorney, I don't think that we can determine who can throw a newspaper on your driveway. But what we can do is strongly discourage it. And that's something that I think we should do simply because it's the safety of our community. And I don't want you all, when you're on vacation in Florida, having a great time, worrying about your house being broken into because you've got a mountain of newspapers at the end of your driveway. So I think that there might be some, and I don't want to give anybody false hope, but I think that there are some things that we can do, probably very much on a minor level. But this council is not about to attack the Constitution. And the Constitution is very strong about everyone has a voice. And that's why we're here tonight. Everyone has a voice. We want to make sure that we hear from you. So thank you very much. Who would like to come forward next? I would like to hear from new folks. Who would like to come forward next? Who would like to come forward? Ms. Russell, you used your time, thank you. Yes, Mr. Fleck. Mr. Fleck.
I need this overhead turned on and focused, please. Is it working? Okay, thank you. Thank you. Mayor Henry, Council, good evening. New City Attorney, Perry, how are you? Mr. Fisher, good evening. My name is Lee Fleck, 435 North Pond Trail,
Sir.
Roswell, Georgia. See, zoom that in, buddy, back there. I'm here this evening to compliment the IT department. The manager of the IT department has come up with an absolutely fantastic P2C program, okay? That replaced what was, that looks good, replaced what was developed in 2014, which hasn't worked since then. It's absolutely a beautiful system, and as a matter of fact, when you're talking about vacations, you can actually schedule a vacation on this and have the police come by and check your house out periodically. It's absolutely fantastic. However, I want to temper my compliment with the fact that your police department doesn't know how to use it. A week ago, last Friday, we had a murder. Hooligans, you probably heard about that. Here we are 10 days, 12 days later, and it hasn't been posted. But yet, it's been in the local paper. I even asked the Roswell Police Department on their own website why it hasn't been posted. No response whatsoever. You know, I hope to God we're not in a situation that you were not too long ago, where this city had to settle with Ray Appens for the fact that their police department was not abiding by open record law. We had to pay out of our pockets $10,500. Now, moving right along, I sent you all an email today, and I got this today. I was surprised how quickly I got today's arrest records for the city of Roswell. This is the one from December, and I want to point out this December 2020. Behind it are all the incident reports for December 2020. As you can see, these are the reports that the police department tells me don't exist, and that's why they would not give me my open record request. My open record request was very simple. Please provide Roswell NIB-RS data for the year ending 2020. They gave me so much bullshit, pardon the French, that I had to go to the Attorney General's office. And the Attorney General finally told David Davison that you cannot use vendor as an excuse, and that they had to give me that information. Well, did they? No, they didn't. But what they did is they, again, falsified records. In the Roswell Annual Police Report, okay, an annual police report, this is the first one in 4 years. The last one was in 2016. In that report, they showed crime comparison for 18, 19, and 20, and this is actually page 9, and they call it the Uniform Crime Report Statistics. They do not have UCR crime statistics for 2019 and 2020. Those are bogus. Here is the last UCR report presented by the city police department, Uniform Crime Report, October 2019. In August, they went to the UCR report. Right there is August to December. The following year, there's January to October. They refused to complete that report. As I showed you, the documents were there. Now, I have an open records report, and I'm telling you, the only way they could have come up with numbers here is they took UCR numbers and they backed them into previous formats. So I ask, 2020, where did they get those numbers? They had to have an NIBR report, which they're refusing to give me, and I want it. Now, in September this year, they're going to have to give that report to the FBI. That's 2 months before the election. Okay? Now, you're in a very comfortable position because you can blame everything on the last guy who left, previous city administrator. But I want my report. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Fleck, and we will provide you with all of the information that you have requested in short order. Is there anyone else that would like to come forward? Yes, ma'am, please come forward.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. My name is Sally McKenzie, and I live at 47 Goulding Place. I'm here tonight to advocate for mitigating the fake news, misinformation that swirls around and sometimes, in my opinion, comes from City Hall. I want to see honest news coming from City Hall. And in that vein, I have 3 things that I'd like to suggest that you all consider. The first thing that would be helpful in increasing dialogue and transparency and FaceTime and trust would be to reinstate the 20-minute public speaking policy that we used to have until 2017 when the new mayor was elected. Since that time, we only have a 5-minute limit, and generally that's fine. However, there have been times when it's a good thing to be able to coordinate with other people to bring forward complex issues and explain our perspective. The second thing is to bring back the restrictive policy instated by the former city administrator and allowed by the current mayor and council. That is honestly a waste of time on your part and ours, to request and set up a city meeting with a city staff member, and I'll use RDOT as an example, and invite people, including city council members, to attend, means that the city staff member that you want to meet with will not be there, and instead the city administrator will be there in his place. So if I want to meet with RDOT and invite people and discuss concepts and ask questions and bring forward perspective, I'm telling the city administrator and he's going to go to the RDOT guy? Okay, that's just dumb. And this was the policy that was instituted in 2019 when we were attempting to set up a meeting. Actually, I had set up a meeting, and then they rolled it back and changed it. And Mr. Palmer's letter is, here's a part of it right here, where he mentions the fact that it's Roswell politics. That's the reason that they're doing this, and that the policy is more effective, and I'm not sure I agree with that. The third thing is I'd like to, again, advocate for the concept or instituting a transportation committee here in Roswell. We have other committees that do a great job and assist you guys in making informed decisions. Right now, we rely on RDOT, and that's it for understanding regarding transportation initiatives. We also, they also, well, not only are they traffic engineers whose perspective is getting people safely from A to B. That is what they do. That's what a traffic engineer is about. They don't have the ability. They don't have our perspective, right? So a transportation committee would definitely help in bringing forward and representing and ensuring that citizen perspective and alternate perspectives, not just citizen perspective, maybe city planning, civil engineering, maybe other perspectives are represented, because we can all admit, or maybe we won't, I don't know, but there have been some very expensive mistakes made with some of our recent transportation initiatives, Oxbow, Big Creek, and of course Gateway. The other part of that is that there does need to be accountability. The timelines on these initiatives are so long. Gateway is over 10 years long, and there's really no one watching it. There's no one watching it. So when RDOT in January of 2018 comes to you guys and says, hey, we need another $800,000 from this ARC grant, and we will be done. We will be done with our final planning monies. That's it. And you guys say, yeah, great. 2 years later, some of you are still there, some of you aren't. They come, they're like, oh, crud, we need $2.2 million more for final planning. And I can tell you right now, they're not done asking for final planning money. So to have another committee in place that is watching the process, participating in the process, can only help with transparency, dialogue, and communication. So thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Ms. McKenzie. And I would like to say we'll take all of these things into consideration. Your first point was the 20-minute public safety. This council has the authority to set rules on these meetings. They are welcome to do that. Also, the city meeting policy. Council has the authority to set city meeting policy. they are welcome to do that as well. Those are not under my authority. I can only vote in the case of a tie. And then also, and I think that there is a something that we need to discuss with a transportation committee, because you're saying a committee that has no term limits, although council is elected and they come and go. But the transportation committee or commission would be in perpetuity. So I don't think that that's a realistic output on it. However, once again, this council can make that decision to move forward with this, and I will respect that decision. So is there someone else that would like to come forward and speak? Yes, sir, please come forward.
I'm Jason Yowell, 5010 Old Oak Trace. Yeah, the Transportation Commission is something that the city needs badly. The Transportation Department is basically unsupervised, and it's one disaster after another with them. But I want to speak on one particular disaster, and that is Oxbow. We've talked about, you know, the absolute failure of design, planning, execution, contracts with regard to the hardware store. But this last bit of business that was voted on last week for these two pieces of right-of-way that seem to have held the whole project up, I'm a little confused. First of all, this seems like a tremendous giveaway. On the face of it, you're acquiring 1,400 square feet and you're paying $300,000 for it, and yet you're giving away 6,000 square feet at no cost. But wait, there's more. You're also going to do the grading, the bulk of the grading for this property. You're going to give them stormwater detention that they otherwise would have to bury on site at great expense. You're going to do the sidewalks and the curbs. There's just a whole lot here that, oh, and you're paying $75,000 to demolish 3 small houses that won't cost $50,000 to demolish. It's a giveaway, and I'm just mystified. At the end of the day, you're consistent in that you're paying, you know, the $8 million an acre that you paid for the hardware store initially, but the rest of the package is just incomprehensible. You're giving hundreds of thousands of dollars away. This is $1 million giveaway between what you're paying them in cash and what you're giving them in trade. And it makes no sense until you start to dig deeper and go back in time. In 2018, it would seem that the city bought these 2 pieces of right-of-way for $300,000. They didn't pay the owner, they paid the developer. Kind of an interesting deal, and I can't understand why we're paying for the same 2 pieces of property again. Did you actually pay the money to that guy? And if so, what happened to the money? Did you get it back? Because we're buying it again. And clearly, there was a lot of community opposition to the cut-through. That's this portion, the extension of Pleasant Hill into the Mill Village. And it's clear from what happened with the initial things going on in 2018 that this was, you know, a secret deal with the developer. In 2018, Leslie Reed sold 44 Maple, which is the piece of property that you needed for this particular, for the bulk of the cut-through road. She sold that to Southern Pines for $344,787,000, and on the same day that she sold it to them, Southern Pines sold the same property to the city of Roswell for $1,000. Now, also in 2018, that's when you bought, and that was in July. This was in September. In July, you supposedly bought the right-of-way. There's just so much to this, it doesn't make sense unless you're making a deal with the developer and committed to put in that road, because without this road, this property is very, very difficult to develop. I mean, in fact, you should have been telling the owner of the property, I tell you what, we'll sell you what we bought for the road, and you're on your own to develop it. This is a ridiculous deal. It's a horrible deal. Now, fortunately, 3 of the council people understand the fallacy of sunk cost. The rest of you, not so much, because you voted to approve this ridiculous thing instead of abandoning this part of the road and moving this road over, abandoning the sidewalk on this side and saying, hey, we're done. We're going to get on with our lives. Bad design, bad contracts, bad planning, bad execution. It never ends with RDOT. It's one disaster after another, and they keep coming and going, oh, well, you know, we got a problem. And you say, well, how much do you need? We'll give it to you. That's got to stop. You can't keep giving RDOT money every time they come crying and going, oh, well, we made a mistake, we didn't figure right. It's a rat hole. You got to stop throwing money down the rat hole. Thank you for listening. And
Thank you very much, sir. Thank you for your opinions. Thank you for your opinions, sir. And they are opinions. You have chosen words like facts, giveaways, secret deals. I will argue with you on those all day long. And excuse me, sir.
And this is my first time ever speaking. Basically, I did do the core training, and a lot of us were all surprised about the zoning and coding laws that the city of Roswell has. And one zoning law and building permit that I'm surprised that city of Roswell doesn't have is when a neighbor rebuilds their driveway, there's no rules or regulations. Fulton County does have one, but since we're a city takes priority. A lot of the surrounding cities also have rules and regulations. I've lived in my house since 1985. I think it was 3 years old when I moved in. Never had any drainage issues with my neighbor's driveway. In November, her driveway was slanted, so it would run down to the street. My house is in lower elevation, and when she had her driveway repoured, she wasn't living at the house. And as you can see, the rainwater slopes down the driveway. When it gets to the right-of-way, it slopes down and is causing major flooding in my yard. This was actually done right after the driveway was done. I realized that there was a problem with her driveway when twice the construction workers were using water in the driveway, and it went down the right-of-way and down the hill. My house is, actually it's a yard drain that was added about 16 years ago, but this is a fall picture, so it's gotten clogged. But you can kind of see the water where it's streaking across, and it goes down here and then across, and then it goes across our lawn. Here's the picture. I did change the French drain, and we have one of the curbed yard drains that goes across it, which is stopping the debris from clogging it. But you can still see where the water, when it's raining, is coming down where the right-of-way is, down and across the driveway. Eventually, our driveway is going to collapse. The reason why my neighbor replaced her driveway was because where her porch was, her drain was right there, and it went underneath her driveway, and it caused part of her driveway to collapse. She sold her house in January. When it rains really hard, my garage is actually getting water in it. You can see right here and here where there's, well, I guess up there you can't, but there's water. And my street is in a valley. And then my driveway is down farther from the valley. Here's a little bit showing the different, I'm not sure how many spaces or whatever, but each line represents so many feet. There's actually 7 houses to the left of my house that the water goes downhill, round a curve. Actually, the cul-de-sac on the corner of my neighbor's house, part of that also runs into the street. Actually, I have 2 videotapes of when the fire hydrant on that side street was open, that the water was cutting across my driveway, across my yard. 16 years ago, the city of Roswell, after many times of complaining about the street being repaved, and they raised the street level, that my yard was, the water was jumping the curb. And finally, the city came out and they put a speed bump at the end of my driveway, and they put 2 diverters in the curb at my neighbor's house. And that was 16 years ago, and that was when we had more soil brought in to build up our yard. We also had the yard drain added that goes to the ditch, or I mean the stream. There's like a little stream that goes along the side right here. And for the last 3 years, I've called the City of Transportation, because the same thing too, when it rains really hard, when we get the hard rain, the rain from the street is jumping the curb and going down my driveway. But now on top of it, I've got my neighbor's water coming to my yard. And here's a picture basically in front of my mailbox. And right here is a red brick that I sat on top of the street. My cell phone and a yardstick is in the curb, and it's almost right here is where it ends, but it's almost 4 inches lower than the street. One of the landscapers that I had come out, since my neighbor's rainwater, actually laid down in my driveway. He goes, well, I can see why you have problems when it rains really hard, because my driveway is lower than the street, because they've never grind down the street. They just kept adding layers, and you can actually see the layers. And every time City of Roswell comes out, they say there's nothing wrong with my neighbor's driveway. The City of Roswell sent an engineer out. The engineer said her driveway was done fine, which her driveway is done fine, except for it's causing, I'm gonna have to use the nuisance law to sue her to correct the problem. The new neighbors there basically says, well, I want it corrected properly, not a quick fix, and the proper way to fix it is to have a curve or an apron added to her driveway, or my neighbor's driveway, which is a new owner. And all the concrete companies only do big jobs, which is like $1,500 to $2,500. And my neighbor that originally owned the house was going to extend the wall to the street. And of course, with the right-of-way, you're not allowed to do that. So I'm stuck with a whole bunch of rainwater. Come fall, we plan on trying to have more soil brought in and have a grass replanted, but we have to try to solve the problem to my neighbor's yard, which is on the right-of-way. Doing a dry drain is going to be hard, because you've got the 2 water lines, you've got the utilities right there. One landscaper said, well, we'd have to crack the curb to get it to go there, but my driveway's right there, and my like I said, my driveway's almost, it's a little bit lower than the street level, because they've never done it properly. It is a risk for me. I am a senior, and just to go to my mailbox, I have to be really careful, because if I step on the curb, I have fallen a few times. This fall, when I was talking to somebody for City of Roswell, he was like, I was at your house, you've got leaves in the drain in the street, and whoever owns that property is responsible. And I go, well, I've cleaned it 4 times. I go, and the 4 times I've cleaned it up, I've tripped 3 times, and I go, and as I've told you, we've got, on my side of my house, on my side, there's 7 houses where the drain goes down, the street curves down, and I'm getting all their lawn debris. But I have to say, this is a safety issue, the way the street is, because about 5 years ago, I fell walking in the park, a national park, and I fractured my wrist and had 9 screws and a plate put in my wrist and had to relearn how to use my fingers and my wrist. So,
Thank you very much. Thank you for coming this evening.
and thank you both, board and Mayor Henry, for all that you do.
Well, and I thank you for taking the time to come this evening. I know that this has been a difficult situation for you. Could I get this street name again, please?
I didn't say it, I do have it on the card,
Okay.
because
Okay.
this is live streamed.
Okay, well, we will, I'll have staff look at that.
But I mean, the same thing.
And then I would, if you could go ahead and have a seat now. Thank you so much. So what I would like to say is that what we'll do is we'll have Environmental and Public Works come out, as well as our Transportation Department and our Engineering Department. And the reason why I'm asking for all 3 of those is we've got 3 things in play. We've got transportation, and I will say that transportation had the direction with the previous council to not reinstate curb and gutter, but to pave over the curb, or pave over the gutter, which reduces the amount of water that the street can handle. So we will look at that. And we have had very, very minor fixes that have taken care of some things in the past. So, and then also we'll have their engineering department look at your water issues as well. There may very likely be some issues between you and your neighbor, but what I want to do is make sure that the city is not involved in those issues, that our city practices are protecting you and your property. So I think that might be some things that we can do. Mr. Fisher is our interim city administrator, and he will be getting in touch with you. We've got your comment card, and he'll set up a meeting to have these folks out to visit with you, and I hope we can resolve it. That is my true wish. Is there anyone else in the public that would like to come forward and speak? Yes, sir, please come forward.
Hello. Name is Will Morthland. Live at 550 Steeple Run, Steeplechase neighborhood. I'm here to request a traffic light. Traffic light coming off of Highway 92, leading into the Wildwood Springs, as well as Steeplechase neighborhoods. Very much needed. You're pretty much taking your life into your own hands, pulling through the oncoming traffic, high rates of speed, anytime, sometimes up to 70 miles an hour, I would say, just on an estimate. When you come off of 92 and you find yourself having to come through and really gas your engine to get through this oncoming traffic, to get into your own neighborhood, or in my neighbor's opinion, into their own neighborhood across the street, you find yourself running through kids in the street, family pets, walkers, bikers, everything and some. Just the debris that is in 92 from probably the weekly wrecks that occur should warrant at least the next steps, the next conversations. Didn't know if my question needed to be addressed to the state of Georgia, since it is highway, state highway, or if this is a Roswell question. Thank you. Yep.
Can you turn on your mic?
And we will do that as soon as possible. So thank you. Councilmember Zapata, did you have a question?
Yeah, I have a follow-up question regarding an update from you, Mayor, regarding Oxford Road investigation report conducted by your office. Where are we right now with the report in terms of progress of the report and the cost of the report so far up to date?
I'm hoping I'll have that update soon. Is there anyone else that would like to come forward and speak? Seeing no one come forward, I would like to thank you all for being here this evening. I hope you have a great evening ahead of you, and please know that we're here to help, we're here to listen to you, and I am more than happy to set up any meetings that we need to have, and then also we will have staff follow up on any unresolved issues. We are adjourned.